This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. We have a guest that is going to take a bite out of all of our interests today.
That was a great lead-in, Jeff. What problem are we solving today?
Why are shark teeth shaped like that?
Why are shark teeth shaped like that? Ooh, this is a question I have always wondered. I've been spending a lot of time at aquariums, so I can't wait to find out the answer. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
We have just the right guest to give us the answers. Today we have the wonderful Dr. Lisa Whitenack. She is Associate Professor at Allegheny College and a shark expert.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Lisa.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk to everyone.
Well, we are excited because I love the ocean. Jeff is the space guy. I tend to be both, but I love the ocean more. And we're talking about sharks. Yay! But I'm going to start with my question that we like to ask all of the scientists and engineers. Did you always know that you wanted to grow up and study sharks, or did you even like sharks as a kid?
So I've always loved sharks, but I didn't know I could do that as a thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mom taught kindergarten and first grade before she retired. And my dad worked in basically computer stuff. And so there's no scientists in my family. And so I never knew that was really a career option. I mean, I knew that people did that, but I didn't know how to do that. So my thought was, hey, I'm going to be a teacher. And so I waffled around quite a bit about what kind of teacher I wanted to be. All growing up, it was usually something teaching. And when it was time to go to college, I wanted to be a high school chemistry teacher.
Oh, yay. Good for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just made a fan of Jennifer.
Yes. I'm a chemistry major myself, so I get it. Yeah.
Well, I didn't stay with the chemistry major. So I only made it about a year and a half. But by then I had taken a class called the History of Life basically I had to take a biology class. It was taught in the geology department, but it worked for that biology requirement. So for our friends and listeners at home, biology is the study of anything alive.
Right.
And so as much as I loved sharks growing up and read about them a lot, I also equally, maybe more, love dinosaurs. Actually wearing the dinosaur shirt today. So I took that class. I'm like, wow, I can major in dinosaurs. This is great. And so I promptly took a geology class, so the study of rocks, because I saw there was a paleontology class that had a couple geology classes that you had to take first.
Right.
And I was hooked and promptly changed my major after that other geology class and made my parents very, very upset. Because again, we don't have scientists in our family. So they were like, well, what are you going to do with this? What's your job going to do? But I was a lot happier, and I even took a geochemistry class, so the chemistry of how rocks form.
Okay.
So still got the chemistry in.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting to do some research my senior year of college and had done some dinosaur work, some dinosaur digs in Wyoming. But the person I was working with who studied starfish fossils went, well, I know you like things with backbones better. Here's some shark teeth that we found with this starfish, this 320 million year old starfish, and all these really weird shark teeth. And that was it. That was the moment I was hooked. I decided this is what I want to do. I want to be a shark paleontologist. And off I went to graduate school. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So at the end of your undergraduate college, you had officially turned into a 6-year-old boy.
Girls like sharks too. Yeah.
because you found a shark tooth and you wanted to be with sharks the rest of your life. That's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah.
So I do have one question.
Sure.
Because you said you did kind of start out with sharks, but then didn't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you came back around. Did you grow up near the ocean to be able to see a lot of marine biology, or were you a landlubber?
Landlubber. I grew up in Chicago.
And how did that happen?
Yeah, I grew up in Chicago. And so, I got to go to the wonderful museums that are there and the Shed Aquarium.
The Shed Aquarium.
Love
That's
the
my
Shed.
favorite. I love the Shed.
But we couldn't afford to go all that often.
Right.
And not everyone in the family is into this stuff. I'm the only one, really. So there's compromises. But we would go up to Wisconsin, up all the way to the northern part of Wisconsin, where you're almost in Michigan, because my dad liked to fish. Specifically for muskie. And my grandmother had this lake house in northern Illinois too that we would go visit. And so I grew up on lakes, but not that's fresh water, right? It's not salty and it doesn't have sharks in it in the US, right?
Yes.
So I wasn't around sharks or anything marine as a kid. I think we had a goldfish once.
Okay.
Not a shark.
Not a shark. And, I got to go fishing with my dad a lot, and I was an outside kid for sure. I loved being outside, but my first time seeing the ocean in person was visiting an uncle in California in high school.
Wow.
And I'm like, yep, it's over there. I think we're at the beach for about 5 minutes because it was cold. And didn't get to do it again until, I think after undergrad. So after college. Yeah.
Wow.
So definitely kind of on the later side coming to the marine stuff. Yeah.
Well, and you study shark teeth too, specifically. And when we were emailing back and forth, you were saying there's all different kinds. So I guess the question is, why are shark teeth shaped like this is what we're talking about. But I don't even know where to start with that because there's so many different sharks. So can you just kind of pick a shark and start with some teeth so we can understand what you do?
So I think the one that everybody thinks about is great whites, right?
Of course.
That's what you see on television. That's what you see in movies. It's kind of the sharky shark people tend to think of. Yes. So maybe I think I'm going to turn it around back to you. What do you think their teeth look like? You've seen them before. How would you describe them?
Like diamonds, kind of, like pointy things.
Pointy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little more triangular, right?
Triangular.
It doesn't have the top half of the diamond up where it connects to the jaw. It's kind of flat. Right. Okay. So they're big, broad triangles, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And then what do they have on the edges? What do they look like?
Teeth, little
Are they
ridges.
serrated? The little ridges.
Spiky.
They're serrated.
They're serrated.
Okay.
See, you already know, and you're not a shark biologist, right? But I just asked you to think about what a shark tooth looks like, and you got it. It's a big, broad triangle. It's got serrations like a steak knife, right? Ooh. Is the way I tend to think of it. They look like tiny teeth, but yeah, that's what people typically think of, right? With a shark tooth.
Sure.
But only a handful of sharks have those. So, so things that we're used to thinking about that we see on TV, great whites, tiger sharks, bull sharks, right? The bull sharks are pretty similar. They're not as tall, the teeth, they're still triangular and kind of broad. Tiger sharks, if you take the tip of that tooth and you kind of pull it like taffy and put it off to the side so that your tooth almost looks like a C, that's what a tiger shark has. And it's all has those big serrations on it. But then you could look at things like a mako, the fastest fish in the ocean. It's a shark. Their teeth look like snake fangs. No serration.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
They're still big. There's no serrations on them at all. And if you look at them, the side of them, they're shaped like an S.
Oh my gosh. Why?
Whoa.
Why?
So
there's got to be a reason why.
Right. Well, that's my whole area of research is why.
Yeah.
Why do we have that?
Dr. Lisa, if you could just explain your entire life study, because Jen just asked why.
Well, that is it, right? Is I'm trying to figure out why the teeth are shaped like that. So, I've given you these triangles. We've kind of tilted, like curled or tilted the triangle. We've now made it no serrations and S-shaped. It gets weirder. Ooh, so if you look at something like a nurse shark or cat shark, right? We think when we think sharks, we think big. Nurse sharks, we see them in aquariums a lot. But the cat sharks are probably about the length of my arm. Most sharks are not huge.
Right.
Okay.
Their teeth are really, really small. And some of them have 3 prongs. And so they have a little center prong and then 2 short prongs.
And all in one
No
tooth.
kidding.
One tooth, but it's itty bitty, right? So it's something that is maybe the size of my pinky nail, usually a little bit smaller,
Okay.
depending on the size of the shark. We can see something like horn sharks. Horn sharks, we see those in the Pacific Ocean in California for our US listeners. And they have teeth that are called molariform teeth. Sounds like molar, right?
Right.
You have molars.
Right.
The molars are in the back of your mouth and they're really flat.
Yes.
Right.
That's what horn sharks have. They eat sea urchins all day long.
Okay.
Right? Hard things.
Oh, I get it. Now that one makes sense because they're going to be bigger teeth, so they have better crunching power.
Yeah, and
so
flat so that they don't break.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you have things. My favorite shark, and listeners, you're going to have to look this one up. The frilled shark.
Oh,
homework.
I've never heard of them.
It's a deep water shark, so we don't see them very often. It's my favorite shark. It looks like a Muppet. I love it so much.
Okay.
And it's gill slits, so the part that they breathe from kind of behind their heads looks like it's all ruffly or frilled. So that's why they're named that.
Oh.
But their teeth are amazing. They are, if you think about a trident, like King Triton holds in the Little Mermaid,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
that kind of shape. And then when you turn it, it looks like all those prongs are shaped like that Mako.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Nobody knows how,
goodness.
like what, why?
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Right. And because they're deep water sharks, we don't know what they eat necessarily very well. So it's hard to make that link. Like with the horn sharks, it's very easy. Not so much with some of these weird shapes. And we could do this all day, right? There are all these crazy shapes that are not that great white shark tooth.
Wow.
That everyone's familiar with. Or we can even talk about whale sharks, the biggest fish in the sea.
Whale sharks, are amazing. I was at Georgia Aquarium, so I saw 3 of them, 2 or 3 of them there, and I could sit there all day and watch them.
Yeah, I've seen those sharks too. They're pretty amazing and
oh my gosh,
totally awe-inspiring. But when you look in their mouths, they still have teeth. They don't use them because they're filter feeders. They're microscopic, right? And so they're so even though we have the shark that doesn't even use its teeth, they still have them.
Still have microscopic teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. So with all of these different types of teeth, especially a lot that I'm guessing a lot of us are learning about right now for the first time, why is it that all of us can describe that same one shape as quote unquote a shark tooth?
Because that's the shark you see on TV.
Yeah. Well, the one that I was
got us again.
I was thinking like our Pixar, right? Finding Nemo. Isn't that Bruce?
Bruce is the white shark.
Fish are friends, not food. Right?
Exactly. And I will say there's a Mako as one of the sharks too. I forget his name, but the teeth look different than the one in the white shark. And so, and this is, I know the person who helped with that movie, the scientist who helped with that movie, had a lot of input into how the animals are portrayed. And he also studies sharks as well. So I know, I suspect Adam Summers had something to do with that one.
You must love that fact.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And I think you just gave our listeners new homework. We all need to go rewatch Finding Nemo.
Yeah, which is a great movie too. Yeah.
I love that movie. One of my favorites.
So talk a little bit about the whale sharks, because we mentioned they're filter feeders, but I'm not sure that everybody understands what that means. And also, I have been lucky enough to see them feed the whale sharks, which is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, so there's 3 filter feeding sharks, and I'll explain filter feeding in just a second, right? We have whale sharks, we have the mega mouth shark, which from the name is exactly what it sounds like. It has a huge mouth.
Wow.
And then the basking shark. So we have these 3 sharks, and they are different from all these other sharks because of this filter feeding. What they do is they swim around with their mouths open, and what gets into their mouth is what they eat. And so a lot of times this is small things like krill, tiny little shrimp. And so they basically keep the food that they can digest, and then they get rid of all that excess water that instead of swallowing it, it'll go out through their gill slits.
Yeah. Well, and their throats are like what, the size of a quarter? They're very small, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've never measured it myself, and I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to do that kind of examination on a wild shark or any kind of shark. But yeah, I mean, the throats, they're not huge. Yeah, and there's some really cool science out there that looks at exactly how that happens. Manta rays. So rays are just flattened sharks, right? Manta rays also are filter feeders, and they do the same thing. And so I have a friend who's a professor in California who studies how all those animals feed and the physics behind it. Some very cool stuff. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Okay. So I want to link this back to where we started with what you're studying and how you get into. You study shark teeth.
I do.
Why do you study shark teeth specifically? Is it because it's the part of the shark that can tell us the most about the shark, or?
That's such a great question. So it goes back to that shark tooth that I found or studied during undergrad, which I'm still obsessed with one particular tooth from that. I'll figure it out someday. But the reason that the scientist that I was working with in college said, here's a box of shark teeth, is because sharks don't fossilize very well, except for their teeth.
Oh, yes.
Right? So when sharks have been around for 400 million years, which means y'all like this one. They are older than trees.
Yep.
They are older than insects, and they're older than the rings of Saturn.
That I didn't know.
Yep.
Wow.
So we have this huge, long history. And when you look at the fossil record of sharks, it's almost all teeth, about 95% of it.
Because that's the only thing that stays because of their bones, or, well, they don't have bones, they're cartilage, right?
Right. Yeah. So their skeleton's made out of cartilage. So for everyone listening at home, put your hand or your fingers on the bridge of your nose, right? Like, I wear glasses, so it's right where my glasses sit. If you tap that, that's the same kind of cartilage that shark skeletons are made out of. They have a little bit of extra minerals, so hard stuff on top of it to make it a little bit more durable. But that stuff on the bridge of your nose does not fossilize very well at all.
Right.
And and you also have cartilage if you touch your ears, right? That's a different kind of cartilage. It's not as hard, it's more flexible. But the sharks, it's the stuff on your nose. So that stuff doesn't fossilize very well. But the teeth for sharks are very similar to ours. It's made out of a lot of the same kind of stuff. And so, our teeth are really, really hard. So are sharks' teeth. And so that means that they fossilize better because they can withstand all that pressure from the rocks on top of it and all of these other earth processes, right? Stuff that wears away rocks, like erosion. Hard stuff does much, much better with that than softer stuff like your cartilage. So on top of that, sharks make thousands of teeth in their lifetime. They're not like us. Right? So my kids used to call me a shark dentist when they were little because I work on shark teeth, and I keep telling them, no, sharks don't need dentists because they replace their teeth constantly. So if you think, if the listeners think about, losing their teeth, and that, you lose one tooth one time and then hopefully never again because it doesn't grow back.
No, it doesn't. That's all you have.
Yep, that's why we have dentists to help keep those in our mouths. Sharks don't need a dentist because if they break a tooth or something like that, they'll replace it with a new one in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, depending on what kind of shark it is. So if you have every shark that ever lived making 1,000 teeth times 400 million years, that's your shark fossil record.
There's a lot of teeth. I mean, I sort of knew that, but now that you put it all together, I find it's cool. And also I have to say, my daughter-in-law is a dentist. So when I told her we were talking to you, now I'm going to call you the shark dentist to her. And she's going to think that's cool. But okay, so when people start being able to recognize the different sharks based on their teeth, because what I'm thinking is you find all these teeth and then you're like, great, now I have to decide what kind of shark this is based only on its teeth.
So people have been figuring out what shark goes with what tooth for a long time. As long as we've had sharks, People have kind of seen those differences, and humans have a natural tendency to want to put things into categories and to sort things.
Yes.
Right. And so even when paleontology kind of became a science, that was one of the first things is this thing looks different than that thing. Right. So I'm going to give them different names. Okay. And that's a whole area of science called taxonomy. Right. For biology, it's how we name things and how we put them in different categories and how are those categories related to each other. And paleontology has been part of that as long as it's existed. Wow. As a science. So a lot of how we do that is if we have something that's living now that looks similar to something in the fossil record, we're assuming that they're probably pretty closely related, and we can kind of work that into their naming. But then the further back in time you go, the less likely that is. And so you end up saying, well, okay, I'm going to call this a species. These all look the same. And I'm going to call this one over here a different species because it looks a little bit different. Yeah.
Okay. So while you're doing your work, studying shark teeth to learn about sharks, do you have targets on, like, this year we want to learn this thing, or is it based on certain types of sharks or certain types of teeth that were found somewhere around the world that got sent to you? How do you decide what it is that you're studying?
So there's two different things that go into which way I'm going with my research. The number one way is what my students are interested in. So
that's nice.
Yeah. And so
it is.
The college I work at, Allegheny College, it's in Northwest Pennsylvania. So again, no sharks here. None. There's Erie, Pennsylvania, as a side note. They actually sell shirts at the local grocery store that says Lake Erie, shark free since forever, or something like that. It's a huge selling point. So we can only study basically teeth that I either have in the lab because people have donated them, or we could go to museums and look at museum collections and see what they have. So we do both of those things. But the specific questions of what we want to learn about, my students drive a lot of that.
Wow.
Because they have to do research to graduate. And so, it's there. So I have three students, I take that back, studying sharks in the lab right now. Not live ones. Again, we're working with teeth.
Okay.
I've got one who is looking at gulper sharks, which are deep water sharks that you can find off of Florida.
Wow.
And trying to see if their teeth change shape as they grow because they're eating different things.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
So she's just measuring the shape. We're starting with that, and then we'll go look and see what other scientists have done to bring in the diet information. And then I have two students who are trying to figure out how shark teeth work. And so, so one is looking at sandbar sharks. And so those are also, a lot of my sharks come from Florida because I did my PhD in that state and there's lots of sharks.
Yes. I live in Florida. There's a lot of sharks. Yes.
And so the sandbar teeth, she is looking at how much force, how hard does it take to push on that tooth to get it into fish, squid, and shrimp, which are all included in those diets.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep, because we don't actually know. Nobody has tested shrimp or squid with these shark's teeth. When I was doing this work for my PhD or my doctorate, I did lots of fish and I did crabs. But I didn't do all these. So there was only so much time. So she's adding on to that. And then my other student is interested in why sharks replace their teeth. And why do they do it so frequently? And so he's thinking that, and it's something that I kind of proposed that he wanted to test, is that if they wear down, it becomes less efficient. So you should get rid of it and have a new sharper tooth. And so poor Ryan, he's been taking shark teeth and puncturing them into fish 400 times each and measuring how slowly they wear down and how that force changes. He's been working on it for 3 years. And so now he's about to graduate. He's finished the study. There's such cool stuff. But that's mostly student driven and what they want to do.
But see, I love that because that's one of the things we talk about on the show is the curiosity, and curiosity drives so much of science, right? It's just you come up with a question and then you have to figure out whether or not you can answer the question,
right?
Or whether it's worth your time and effort to answer the question. do you guys ever like talk to or work with aquariums or scientists in the field who go out and like see sharks in the wild and kind of get data from them too to help you make your decisions, your theories?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the things I love about science, and especially the type of science I do, is I never work by myself.
Yes.
I'm always working with other people, right? And I know, right, my students complain, more group work. It's a huge life skill.
It is.
It is.
Yes.
I've never ever published a paper. So that's for the listeners. Publishing a paper, I have to write about the research and get it published somewhere so other scientists can read it. Right. So those papers, these very, very long essays, basically, I've never written one by myself. I've always had collaborators through my whole career, and it makes my science better.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that includes, I've done work with sharks out in the wild. I've done work with sharks in aquariums. We got to measure when I was in graduate school how much suction they can produce, because they're suction feeders where they basically like sucking through a straw, that's suction, right?
Yeah.
Right.
They do that naturally. So not all sharks feed like great whites. We talked about filter feeders. This is another one, suction feeding. A lot of sharks do this. And we got to measure that they do a negative atmosphere. They make a full vacuum with their mouths to suck in things like lobsters and other fish and shrimp and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's not easy to suck up a lobster.
No, but they're very good at
it. Well, it's because it's lobster. It's a delicacy.
Yeah. That's right. It tastes good.
So I, like Jen, also love the fact that a lot of your research is student-driven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
More on the personal side, Dr. Lisa, is there a question about sharks that you would like to find the answer to or know the answer to? Something that we don't know yet that you want to know.
So I have a ton, but the one I will never run out of research questions.
Yes.
One of the things I keep I always have notebooks everywhere.
Yes.
Inevitably what happens is I'm falling asleep at night and I'm like, oh, I wonder if this, and I write it down. Doesn't mean it actually becomes research, but it happens all the time. It's kind of ridiculous. But the one research question that drives what I want to do and why I want to know why sharks' teeth are shaped the way they are is because of one of the teeth from my undergrad years from college. So these 320 million year old shark teeth look nothing like your great whites or anything we have right now.
Wow.
So I keep a 3D print of this tooth on my desk right under my computer screen because I like to look at it sometimes. I'm going to hold it up to the camera for our hosts here, but I'll describe it too, and then I'll send a picture for the website.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So what this tooth looks like is it looks like a round cone as the main part of the tooth.
Right.
Right. So that looks kind of Make-A-Wish, but the Mako has cutting edges on it. These don't. So it's just a cone. Then if we kind of come out from the cone, there are all these little tiny cusps.
Wow.
Right there we go. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're all different sizes. So the whole tooth shape looks like an upside down T, where the where the kind of top of the T is the base. That's lined with all these little cusplets. And then the stem of the T is our cone. Okay. But then the other crazy thing about this tooth is the base is super flat and kind of a parallelogram shape. And we don't see that in modern teeth either. So these teeth, this particular tooth, this is from Cladotus, this particular genus. And the whole tooth is about the height of, if I look at my index finger from the tip to that first knuckle, right? So it's not very big, but a mouthful of these, right? Why? What are those little cusplets for? Why is this cone shaped? When we don't see that in sharks now.
Wouldn't you think that might break off? I mean, that's what
right. And I tested that. And it doesn't. So so this is why I went for the listeners, I went to school for geology, right? As a paleontologist, that makes sense, right? You've turned the animals into rocks. That's what a fossil is.
Yes.
And I did my master's in geology too, but for my PhD, I switched to biology because I wanted to look at the modern sharks to see if I could figure out why their teeth were shaped the way they were. Then I can throw it back into the fossil record and figure out Cladotus. So I made some clodotis teeth out of aluminum and shoved them into the fish and measured the force, just like I did the modern teeth. Right. And then I did some cool computer modeling to figure out if these would break. They do not. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. And so I have a lot of nope, it's not that. I joke around with my colleagues and my students all the time that my career is a lot of nope, negative results. It's not that. I keep crossing things off the list.
I feel like you're the shark version of Edison on creating a light bulb. Yeah. Nope, that's not how it works.
There you
Try
go.
something else. Try something else.
Exactly. And I haven't figured it out yet. So I want to know why.
That's a cool question to answer.
That is. Well, and we will definitely put this picture on the website because listeners, you have to see this because it almost to me looks like it's a plastic mold or something, because it's so weird shaped. Yeah. But now you're saying it's really hard and it doesn't break. So now I'm very intrigued.
Yeah. So we took the original tooth, the fossil, right, that this 3D print is based on, and we took it to a medical center and had them CAT scan it. Then I was able to take those CAT scans to build the model on the computer. And then I could send that to the 3D printer. So even though I don't have the tooth itself anymore because it belongs to a museum, all the fossils I worked with during college, when you publish on it, if those are specific fossils, they have to be in a museum collection so other scientists could look at them. So I don't have them anymore, but I have the print.
I know, but I'm just saying, still, even the shape,
it's weird.
Just doesn't look like it's natural, kind of. It's. Very cool.
Looks like a spaceship a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
It does. So Jeff probably thought rocket, right? Because he's a space geek. So he looks at the tooth and he's like, look, it's a rocket.
Yep. But I will definitely send pictures along because it's wild. Yeah, nothing has teeth like that. There's a bunch of other shapes in back, 400, 300, 250 million years ago that we don't have now. But this is the one.
Wow.
That's been bothering me.
Well, if you ever figure it out, come back on the show because our listeners, we will want to know. Well, we are at that time in the show where we ask our guests to give us a challenge. And I'm very curious to hear what your challenge is for our listeners, Dr. Lisa.
So I have 2 challenges. You can pick your challenge. And they're both thinking about why sharks' teeth are shaped the way they are. So for the first one, I know some of our listeners probably have a favorite shark because a lot of people who are into marine biology do. Yes. And granted, my kiddos are in 8th grade and 4th grade now. And granted, they're the kids of a shark scientist, so they have a favorite shark. But a lot of kids do. When I talk to kids, I do it a lot. And they always have a favorite shark. So the first challenge is to do some research on your favorite shark. So do some reading about it, go online with one of the adults in your life and see what their teeth look like. And then see if you can make a hypothesis or a guess about what they're eating based on that tooth shape, and then see if it's true. Right. Yep. So that requires just a computer or a phone or something or a book or something like that. Right. The second one, you definitely need an adult for. So,
okay.
So this one, we can, instead of looking at one shark, we're going to look at lots of sharks. So you can do some research and see what their teeth look like. We described some at the beginning of this episode, but you can do some more research and figure that out. And then, this is why you need an adult, see what you can find around your house, tools that look like that. Look in your kitchen, look in your garage. Again, parents, adult, whoever your adult is, make sure you have an adult, right? Because we don't want anyone to get hurt.
Right.
But then you can test it. Right? And test what you think, different prey items.
Probably not with the lobster.
No, I don't think those are expensive.
That would be a little expensive. Like Play-Doh or something like that.
You could do Play-Doh. You could do an apple, right?
An apple.
Even though we only have one shark that eats any kind of plant matter. It's the bonnethead shark, and they eat seagrass as part of their diets. But an apple, it's kind of hard, right? And so it could be a good stand-in for a lobster, for example. Or if you have a walnut or something like nuts are really good. So
because that's creative. Like the crustaceans that's breaking through the hard shell. I love that experiment. Jeff, are you going to do that with your daughter?
Oh, totally. And I'm going to explain that we are basically going to be mini Dr. Lisa's students doing these experiments. We may not do 400 on each tooth.
Do not, yeah, it's a lot.
I hope we don't feel like quitters.
Yes. Yeah, but this is something I even do with my sophomores. So my second year college students is they test how shark teeth work in one of our classes, and they have to come. So I get a lot of stuff from the grocery store for them. So if they have fish or shrimp or squid, something I can get at the grocery store, we'll do that. We had one student who was curious, right? Because you see a lot of television on Shark Week about sharks are dangerous, they bite people, etc. Right? So they got chicken and wanted it as a stand-in for people, which yeah, and had me buy some neoprene from the fabric store to put that on top of the chicken breast, just to see if the neoprene would actually help protect against cuts or anything like that. It does not, which I could have told them.
Good to know.
I knew ahead of time, but they're learning and they're figuring out how to do these experiments, and that's way more important. So
it is.
That's terrific.
Yeah. Grocery store is a great place to get stand-ins for prey items.
Yes, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yes.
Well, before Jennifer closes us out, I do want to ask one really quick question.
Sure.
If there is one fact that you could share with our listeners about sharks, what do you want them to know about sharks?
They are not out to get you.
That's good.
Right? The ocean is their home, and they are not hunting people, I promise you.
Yes. They're amazing, amazing creatures. Amazing.
And we taste terrible.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
This has been fascinating. I've learned so much, and I have several notes on homework that I need to get.
Yes, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for being on Solve It for Kids, Dr. Lisa.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
I'm telling you, we could have a shark expert on this show every other week, and Space Geek Jeff would be just fine. That was fascinating. And two different challenges. Her first one, research your favorite shark to see their teeth and then hypothesize what they ate. Oh yeah, we're definitely doing this one.
Absolutely. You could be a shark dentist, right? Like she calls her, like Dr. Lisa calls herself. And the second one I think is also cool. Research a bunch of sharks, find out what their teeth look like, and then go around your house and see if you have any tools that might be shaped like the shark tooth. Now, be careful, of course. So, safety first with all of these things. But how cool is that?
Jen, I think my favorite challenges are these ones that take the things that we love, like sharks, but aren't anywhere near our homes. And even if you live near an aquarium, how often are you actually going? But that challenge brings those sharks and the whole idea of what we're learning right into our homes.
Yep.
This is going to be fascinating. I'm looking through my tool drawer.
It is absolutely about that. So science is all around you, and so is engineering. So all you have to do is take a look. So if you do find any tools, or you just want to share with us your favorite shark that you learned about and what their teeth look like, you can tag us on our social media. We are at KidSolve at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to check out our website, solveitforkids.com, where we have a page for every episode, including this one, also with books at the bottom that you can go check out from your library and learn more about shark teeth. Who wouldn't want to do that?
So after this episode, everybody should now have a favorite shark and favorite shark teeth. Arr, arr, arr.
Absolutely.
Until next time, you'll hear Jen and Jeff on
Solve It for Kids.